Hi everyone, the video that you're about to watch was filmed exactly 2.5 months ago. Please stick around to the end of the video to hear my thoughts and messages on what's going on right now, participate in a fun contest, and to also watch the wheel spin to find out what we're going to be doing next week. Thanks guys.
This is my birthday chocolate, this is Colin, and this is Just Paul. Colin and I, for a special birthday video, it has nothing to do with my birthday.
Happy birthday!
Thank you!
Another circle around the world? Does that work? No.
Wait a minute. Colin and I are both filmmakers.
Hello.
Colin moved to Los Angeles from Pittsburgh.
I'm on my 4th year.
And he's an editor by day and an all-over filmmaker in all of the things he does. He has a YouTube channel, which is linked somewhere here. And you can see more of his hilarious videos because he's really funny without putting too many expectations on you.
Yeah. So interesting because like back in the day we would like make YouTube videos and we just did it because we like wanted to and we had fun, and then we kind of grew into this professional environment where, not saying that YouTube isn't professional, but now our YouTube standard is so much higher, you know, when we make videos, so we're like, this has to be perfect.
So this is a little chat we're gonna call two things that are the same and one that's different, or two things that are different and one that's the same, or three things that are different and nothing's the same. We'll see. I'll make up the title when I know what the video is about. Yeah. But we are going to generally have a discussion about if you want to move out of your city, or you think that you have to, or you don't want to, or you really want to, if it's worth all of the travel, the expense of living in Los Angeles.
So many people are like, oh my gosh, I want to do what you did. I'm like, Henny, sit down. Let's figure this out here.
Yeah.
Take a minute. I didn't just think like one day I'm like, all right, I'm gonna move to LA and just get in my car and go.
And honestly, if I didn't move here with like $10,000 worth of savings, I probably wouldn't be here still right now.
So I actually didn't grow up in Pittsburgh. I grew up in Ohio and then moved to Pittsburgh when I was like 18 for college, where I went to study digital film and video production. And Pittsburgh, it's holds a huge place in my heart. I love the city so much, and I think the cool thing about Pittsburgh is that there's so many passionate people there. When I graduated college, I was trying to get a job as an editor, like specifically editing, and I was like applying to anything I could find, but there really wasn't that many video editing opportunities that I could really actually apply to. I was kind of working just at random jobs for about 2 or 3 months. So I filmed at American Eagle for a couple of months, and then an editing position opened up, and I've been kind of like telling them like, hey, slip me in. And I eventually started working with your sister.
I had a similar experience just talking about how small the community is. When you are in your small market, I feel like you get to know each other really quickly. You get to work with each other, find your people, find the people that you don't get along with pretty easily. You find your group that's making the kind of movies you want to make. And I would say that being there for like 7 years, I was working my way up towards the end of being in Pittsburgh. I wasn't auditioning anymore. Like, people were just asking me to do stuff, which made it extremely hard to make the decision to actually move to Los Angeles, because I knew, and I was right, that goes away really quickly. This goldfish in a nice little goldfish sized bowl. You think about going to Los Angeles and you are literally dropped into the actual Pacific Ocean of
shark-infested waters.
Both opportunities and competition.
In Pittsburgh, if you're trying to be in film or video editing or really whatever, acting, you have to put in the work. Whereas in LA, no shade, but there's a lot of people that I met who were born in LA who feel like they just don't need to put in the work and expect everyone else to do it for them. It's one thing if someone says, hey, listen, I'm low on money and I need this edited, but I can do this for you. Are you okay with this? Because that's an agreement.
Yeah, right.
And then you can say yes or no.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But like if it's like, hey, I really need this edited. It's like, hi, I really need a girlfriend. But I'm not forcing anyone to do that either.
The way that I actually phrase that, or I've heard it to be said, is an East Coast versus West Coast mentality.
Yeah.
Kind of a New York versus LA mentality. Totally. How New York is so fast paced. It's so self-building and self-striving. Yeah. And then when you come here, everybody's a little bit more lax. Yeah. Everybody is kind of like the weather, where it's all easygoing. I set a standard for myself that I wasn't submitting to anything like under $125 a day, which is even pretty low. It doesn't make it even worth the Lyft ride to go to some of these places, especially when you don't always know what to expect from certain people. A lot of people on Facebook, they can say that they're a filmmaker, and until they send me a piece of footage or a reel or a website that shows their work, then you could just be a dude that decided to say that randomly.
Even though LA has a lot of opportunities, I think that Pittsburgh people are more likely to let you film in locations with
my God, that's
you know what I'm
so
saying?
true.
Like you don't have to like pay location fees or like permits, whereas in LA, like I've been kicked out of locations like several times. Like in Hollywood I was kicked out one time.
I mean, it makes sense because the expectations are there, and if they can bank on it, whoever owns the property or has any kind of authority over the property, they'll do that. But I would almost like make some of my future films in Pittsburgh, like have to like move the whole production there in order to have a little bit more freedom and less expense.
So when I was in Pittsburgh and working as a video editor, I loved my job so much. Like I loved all the people I worked with, your sister, don't tell her that. In this kind of situation where there was no growth for me. Like I didn't think that I would ever be able to get a full-time position because there was no full-time positions available.
Yeah, right.
And like Katie had seniority over me, which I would want her to get it over me. The difference between opportunities in LA versus Pittsburgh is, I think, there's a lot more in LA. The problem is getting noticed.
If you had the aspiration to come out here and do a lot of free work in order to build up your resume, it would be possible. It just would be an expense. And just like anywhere else, you wouldn't know what you were going to be getting. People literally might not have the experience, so you have to grow together. I really wanted to build my reel in Pittsburgh because I was with my family. I was at home. I was, comforted with all of those surrounding familiarities. I think it's going to be a toss-up. You can come out, if you already live out here and you want to be an actor or live close, like, you can get the experience. There are jobs. There's also a lot of competition. When you were auditioning for a part in a small city, like, I'll speak for myself. When I would audition, like, 75% of the time, I'd get the role. Like, that's ridiculous. Especially when you compare to my LA experience where I have all of this experience, I have all this real material, I have this good reputation. Yet when I'm submitting to something, especially if we're talking about the databases, Actors Access, LA Casting, which are two of the main ones, I learned or heard the figure that when you're submitting to a role, like say within your demographic, you're competing with 4,000 other people. Not just for that same project, for that role that you have to beat out. For anybody who doesn't expect that, you're gonna get depressed, you're gonna wanna leave, you're gonna wanna quit, and it's going to be those people that kind of stick with it, I guess, that end up getting the roles that they want.
I was basically in a situation where I had to hire a video editor, and once like the job posting was online, we would get honestly like 100 to like 200 applicants, sometimes like per hour. Now some days it was like lighter, maybe like 100 per day, but like typically it was like just rolling in, and it was not possible to see every single person, especially when you're doing your main job.
Right.
So you would like sit down and you would just like look a lot of times to see the first couple people who applied because they're the most thirsty, or sometimes you would see like the most recent, but those people in the middle sometimes you didn't.
I was gonna ask you, so when you were looking at all of those applicants, was there something that stood out to you or really mattered as far as giving somebody the job?
Here's the one thing that's kind of awkward, is that if you're hiring for like a video editor, for instance, sometimes you'll get applicants with reels that are so amazing that they almost aren't qualified for the role.
That
versus
makes sense.
So bad.
That does happen at other companies or other types of businesses where somebody's overqualified and would deserve more money, but that position is not offering what they deserve.
When you send in your application and you don't get a job, you're instantly going to think, wow, I suck, my reel wasn't good enough, this and that. That's not actually the case. Half the time when there are applicants that you aren't seen, you'll do like an auto deny because you found someone else. So you'll get rejected, but they didn't actually even see you.
I also was thinking about the aspect that a lot of people bring up when they're comparing their home cities to LA, and that's kind of the personal aspect of meeting friends and interacting with people. The stereotype that I did hear over and over again, when you're back home, you have real friends, and then when you come here, people are fake. What I personally found, one, I haven't made a whole lot of friends that were native Californians. In fact, I can think of like 2 that I actually hang out with. And everybody else is from Pittsburgh. I feel like it is nice if like you did have a bit of a community, if you knew anyone that moved from your hometown, to kind of get in contact with them, even if you hadn't really been best of friends with them beforehand. A lot of people are willing to help out those from like their tribe, their roots.
Totally. I mean, there are people that I knew in high school who wasn't really friends with, who I hang out with now in LA, just because like we grew up in the same area. And it was, I mean, I guess they weren't strangers, but to the point where like we weren't necessarily friends then versus now. And I think it is true, like LA people, you have to vet them more. Like I think Pittsburgh, there's a lot more authenticity and just like genuine, like what you see is kind of what you get.
What my problem is with that statement, I met a lot of people that are also from other small towns and they were like me. So I never really understood the aspect of these people are different. You're all only going to be meeting Californians, because I actually meet like a lot of people from those walks of life.
There's a difference between a grind to get where you need to go, and using someone.
That's an interesting point that you bring up, because I'm always on the grind.
Totally.
Anybody can take this the way that they want. I connect with people that I think are talented, and I'm interested in watching them develop even further. And then when I meet somebody that like is really disillusioned, it doesn't interest me. Does that mean I'm fake? Maybe. Like, does it mean I'm on the grind? I don't know. It's like a sliding scale that I've never really been sure about.
That whole like grind versus like fake, it's riding this line, because if you're in the industries that we're in, you have to ask people for things. There's no way you like can't. And to some degree, I mean, you're gonna ask someone for something, and like there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I've asked tons of people for things, but the biggest thing is like being completely candid.
You know, I've made fun of like the kind of meal credit coffee thing before. At the same time, I've asked for it from people, but it's always up to that person whether they think that the project is worth it, whether they think they're going to get something out of it. And if anyone will deny a role, especially when they've seen up front that like they're either not going to get paid what they deserve or something like that, that they can agree and find worth in it. I've definitely done stuff I've done everything for free pretty much all of my Pittsburgh career, and I had to make sure, and it's why I would constantly vet people and ask for their reel, to know that it was going to be finished, I was going to get material out of it. At this point, I don't need any more reel material. I don't need any more examples of different kinds of things that I've been in. I'll leave those roles to the people who are coming up. Let's talk about like the expense and the quality of living.
So I'm paying about 3 times, maybe 4 times as much as I'm individually than I was in Pittsburgh. If you are trying to move to LA and you don't have, I mean, minimum like $7,000 to $8,000 like saved up, make sure you have like you know your I's dotted and your T's crossed.
Say if you even got a role, like one role before you moved into this city, you have to have an income that's constantly coming in order to make all those bills. It was never going to happen with just freelance work, just acting gigs alone.
And it goes back to the grind. Like, are you willing to live with a roommate? Like, and maybe even the same room. Are you willing to live with 6 people in a house? Are you willing to do that? Because if you're not, then you're going to have the funds to afford a more expensive place. My roommate and I, we were friends in Pittsburgh. We both moved to LA together. We have a 1-bedroom loft, and he's in the loft, and I have the room. And I mean, I'm paying like $1,500 a month, which is wild. And that's not even talking about like insurance or anything like that. Like that's.
I can talk a little bit about transportation. You drive. Everybody does for the most part. I ride. There would have been no other decade where I would have been able to come here where it was a possibility to take lifts everywhere. I really was actually going to default to taking the bus system, but it's awful. When I knew I was going somewhere that seemed accessible enough by the bus system, it would take a minimum of like 2.5 hours, and you're not even, like, you have to do a bunch of transfers. And I've heard from some other people that sometimes the bus doesn't even show up. So I exclusively take lifts, and that's another thing that really factors into my expenses. Now, of course, everything that would include a car, the insurance, the parking, the gas, the maintenance, that would be something to factor in, of course, to your monthly bill.
I have a car, but I have a very consistent route, so I know exactly where I'm going to go every single day. For me, even though I live really close to work, it would be more expensive for me to Uber and Lyft, because I had to do that one time for a week because my car was broken down. It was more expensive on that sense. But if you are an actor or you're a freelancer and you don't know where you're going to be going on a daily basis, and you may be home like several days a week and you're not consistently out and about, then I think the rideshare works. I mean, Pittsburgh, you know, it has its suburbs and, you know, from point A to point B, but Los Angeles is huge.
Where do you think around the hub of the valley, like, where do you think people should be looking at?
I would say just kind of like Sherman Oaks, Studio City, Burbank. I think Tarzana's good. Like Hollywood, I think would be
dirty.
It's dirty. Yeah. That's the thing with LA though, is that I'm kind of just giving like a generalization. Like, you can't really take my complete word for it because there are things filmed all over the place. You know, like it's not like it's not just there. And there's also not one perfect place to live. Some people really, really like living in Hollywood. I don't know why, but they do. I think it's because it's like cheaper. Actually, I do have some really good friends though in Hollywood, and they live in a bomb place.
Oh, yeah?
Like I would totally live there, but they have garage parking and they have like nice bedrooms.
Oh wow!
But yeah, they're paying like not much.
When you are acting out here, one of the things that you have to add into your budget again is the databases. If you do want to try to work in the actual filming industry, then you would have to put yourself on, you know, Actors Access, LA Casting, and possibly Casting Frontier. Because I do have an agent, but there is a vast portion of the auditioning process that you're submitting for and auditioning for things yourself. What I've learned so far, try to niche down if you can find a character type that you do fit into, at least for now. Like, I was very, very aggressively against the idea of just playing up to one specific character. I was able to play a lead ingenue, but maybe here, like, there's a lot more competition for what somebody is supposed to look like, what they want from a lead. I, a lot of the times, have to play up to, like, the alternative chick, the maybe like LGBT specific kind of person, so that I actually have more of a chance to compete for my roles. And that's just the reality. I like to think of it's not forever, just if you want to get your feet wet, you actually want to get into like a Hollywood-based project to maybe think about what fits your style that's different from everybody else, that you can kind of snake your way in there.
Coming to LA and taking the risk is kind of like two things. I would say one, you have to humble yourself, and you also have to understand that, like, just because it may not work for you doesn't mean that you're not talented. There's a lot of talented people I know that come to LA and they can't make it work simply because they're not being seen, not because of their talent. I have been really incredibly lucky throughout my experience in LA because I've had a really stable job that has allowed me to do a lot of different things in this world, but again, it goes back to luck. Like, I don't think that I'm better than anyone else just because that I've been able to live here for 3.5 years. Don't think that LA is the end all be all. Like, I mean, like, you don't have
News to me.
I mean, the thing is that, an example, I know a cinematographer who used to live here, exceptional work. I mean, he's been here for, I don't even know how long. Exceptional work, really great guy. Him and I did a commercial together, kind of on a freelance gig, and I would talk to him a lot about, you know, how his experience in LA had been. He was someone that I met up with when I came out here just to, like, pick his brain on how he made it work. Amazing guy, but something that he explained to me was rates in LA, they vary. He recently moved outside of LA, and his rate now is triple what he was making in LA as a cinematographer because there's less competition where he is.
One thing that I've heard from my friend is that whenever she goes back to Pittsburgh, she is the girl from LA. Like, she's the producer from LA. It does give you a nice little reputation for at least experiencing the city. and learning from the industry that's doing it all. These might be things that you heard before, or they might be things that you were completely unaware of, and now you know a little bit more about the difference between your small market in your hometown compared to if you move to the big industry of LA where you want to work and shine like a star.
And know that every path is different. That's so corny. I love it.
You should have told me to open this on camera. This is Colin's New Year's card that's going right up on my wall. Colin does this shit all the time, and it makes me smile so much.
I hope you guys enjoyed that film-themed video, but right now I would like to talk about what the world is going through, what specifically America is going through right now, and add my thoughts on the situations. Let's talk about quarantine first. For a lot of cities and states, we are about to go into the green phase of opening businesses back up. For a lot of people, this will mean going back into shops, going back into restaurants, and in a lot of ways laxing what we've been practicing to stay safe and keep the count of coronavirus cases down. So while it will be more socially acceptable to stand closer to one another and not necessarily wear all the masks and gloves that a lot of us have been forced to do, that doesn't mean that the virus will just stop existing anymore. If we look at some historical precedents that have been eerily reflecting what we're going through right now, we might experience a second and third wave before a vaccine or a cure is finally discovered or created. This means that despite us letting up on our economic strife right now and going back into the workplace and back to public businesses, we are still endangering ourselves and people that we love if we start to really relax on the precautions that we've been taking. Especially when it's so easy to wear a homemade mask and or gloves and practice standing just a few more feet away from each other in order to keep ourselves more safe. And as for the second ever contest I've ever held on This Is Just Paul, I am giving away, well, my friend Emily Matheson is giving away this very cool film crew quarantine shirt. I put my number of days that I've not been on set, which, when you put it into perspective, has been a lot. And when you go back to set, you can put on the back the date that you were booked for your first ever post-quarantine gig. These are available for purchase for yourself and your entire crew on Emily's Etsy Beside the Point. I actually own another one of Emily's tank tops. I wear it so often, you must have seen it so many times. So I wanted to support her and her message as well, because obviously I really believe in it. To participate in the contest, all I want you to do is comment below one positive aspect of being in quarantine. I know for a lot of people it's very easy to find all the negatives, but I certainly have been able to center back to myself, finish a lot of projects that I've been putting on the back burner, and connecting with a lot of you a lot closer. Indulge me, and I'll get in contact with you and send you a free t-shirt. Whether you're in a film crew or not, you'll get one from me and Emily in your size. And finally, I'd like to touch upon the protests that are going on all across the country because of George Floyd's murder. My heart goes out to everyone. George's family, everybody that is standing for Black Lives Matter and this movement. I want to tell everybody to stay safe, but that literally means, I guess, not leaving your house after 6 p.m. in some cities, or else the police state will just take it out on you. Certainly wasn't held by the president. I've never really gotten political on this channel because I usually don't have anything to say that hasn't already been said, but let me just state the obvious. And this voting season, let's finally get Trump out of office. It is about time. And now it's time to spin the wheel. I don't really have anything to say, but I love you guys. Art and Etsy. Not like we've not been doing crafts every single week for Quarantine Friday. Maybe you guys should tell me what you want to see when it comes to art and or Etsy. And anything that I can do to brighten your mood. This is my outro. And finally, our fifth category is self-worth. We did not even plan that, buddy!
It was a massive high five. There we go.
I already said final.
Oh, sorry.